welcome to today's briefing on the Oracle IoT Internet of Things Discovery Workshop, during which we're going to discuss this excellent and complementary opportunity to help you understand how you can apply this workshop into your business. I'm Simon Nicholson from the Oracle IoT Cloud Service Product Management Organization here at Oracle, and I'll be joined today by my colleague Thierry Bouchelet from the Oracle Insight Program. So, the purpose of today's event is to provide you with a recap on your recent attendance. You recently attended an Oracle IoT event where we provided you with an introduction into Oracle's IoT strategy and our product and service offerings for the cloud. And you may now be thinking, how can I apply IoT into my business? And, how can I learn from what Oracle provides? So over the course of this session today, I'm going to introduce you to this excellent and complementary tool that is provided by Oracle to help you identify how you can apply IoT into your business, and then work with us to identify and prioritize the opportunities that can help you enjoy that shortest time to value for IoT. So just briefly review the agenda today. I'm going to provide you a short recap of some of the content that we talked about at the recent event you attended regarding Oracle's IoT strategy, our cloud service offering. And then I'm going to hand over to Thierry from the Oracle Insight team to provide you with more details about the Discovery Workshop, the deliverables, how to engage with it, and some of the deliverables that you can expect to enjoy from it. Now, before I go any further, please use the Q&A tab as within your On24 window there, so we can capture your questions as we're going through the material, and then we will come back and address them at the end of today's session. So just to reintroduce today's speakers, as mentioned, I'm Simon Nicholson from the Oracle IoT Internet of Things Cloud Service Product Management Organization. I'm responsible for how we take our cloud service offering, our IoT cloud service offering, into market. And also joining me today, it's a pleasure to introduce Thierry Bouchelet, and Thierry's from the Oracle Insight team in Europe. Now, before we get to the actual details around the workshop itself, just a brief recap of some of the points that we covered during the recent IoT event that you attended. One of the areas to start here is looking at the effect of digital and the effect of IoT and the transformational effect that's having on business today. It's widely observed that digital is having an impact, and an increasing number of enterprises are now executing digital strategies to realize these benefits and stay competitive. Maybe they're offering new business models and certainly drive to increase the value of the experiences that their customers enjoy from them. For example, in many industry segments now, there's an increasing drive towards delivery of an outcome or a service-based model, where we're seeing a shift from maybe owning a product under a CapEx model towards paying for usage of a product under an OpEx model. We're seeing this observed maybe in the provision of aircraft engines, trains, tires, even in the insurance industry with capabilities and initiatives like usage-based insurance. Now, we obviously need to define what we mean by this everything as a service and how that's enabled by digital transformation. And one of the key items that's enabling this to happen is there's a very low barrier now to creation of new services to reach customers and deliver against this new economy. There's an ever-increasing amount of data out there that's available on multiple channels, whether it be coming from the material we've already gathered about our customers and the material, the information that we collect about them, their experiences and how they express them on social and mobile channels. And increasingly now, much of the data is now coming from things, the devices they use or the products of ours that they actually use every day, which are increasing the amount of data, generating ever more data. And the other part of this is that we're now increasingly seeing predictive analytics becoming available at scale and at a price point that means they're available to all. Now, if we focus into IoT specifically, one of the key challenges we face here is how we actually bridge the world of operations, the operational world on the left, and the information technology world or the enterprise world on the right. And specifically here, reflecting on the devices on the left. The devices on the left are effectively the physical world, where there's variable connectivity, where maybe devices aren't necessarily always available 24/7 by 365. Maybe the device spends a lot of its time asleep. Maybe it's in some production environment. And the challenge here is how we gather the data and how we take the information available from those devices and bridge that and bring that to bear within the more virtual nature of the enterprise world on the right. After all, it's the business applications on the right that express the customer services or express the value of our organizations and how we deliver that value. And the challenge here is how we get the data from the devices into the enterprise, and also how we're able to address not just the volume. I mean, there's much spoken about the volume of devices and the ever-increasing volume of data that these devices are going to generate, but also the variety of that data, and probably most significantly, the velocity at which that data is being generated, 24/7 by 365. I mean, increasingly folks are talking about enormous quantities of data coming at them relentlessly. And the key challenge is how to actually be able to harness that data and find the value that lies within it. And today, in many customers, this bridge, this interface between the physical world on the left and the virtual world of the enterprise on the right is being addressed manually. And any resulting response may well be reactive in nature. So one of the questions that we're working to address here is how do we actually enable the enterprise to capture the data, inspect that data, interrogate that data, and then generate value from it. And this is where, as you will have heard on your recent event, where we're focusing the work we're doing with the Oracle Internet of Things Cloud Service. And the Oracle Internet of Things Cloud Service, which is obviously a cloud-based proposition, provides three core levels of capability. Firstly, focusing on how we connect to the physical world, the devices on the left here, how we connect to them securely, reliably, and collect data from them at scale. How we address the variety of data and also how we address that velocity of data that I spoke to previously. But it's not just about how we collect the data from the devices, but also about how we can deliver data back down to the devices. Maybe we're actually seeking to send the devices some form of instruction to adjust its behavior or adjust some setting. Now, the connection of the devices is really a means by which we're actually gathering the data. The key thing now is how we actually realize the value of that data. And there are two key components to this. First of all, IoT cloud service capabilities around analytics. Whether that be to enable analytics of the data at rest using BI tools, using big data tools, or whether that be to apply lessons learned and insights derived from that data analytics of that data at rest and apply those lessons learned into the streaming analytics capability within IoT Cloud Service so we can actually inspect the data as it's coming from the devices and actually begin to filter it and identify key moments, key events. After all, if I'm generating terabytes of data from my devices, it may well be that there's certainly a lower volume of data that is going to be pertinent and needed within my enterprise environment. So it's very much about that analytics in terms of not just the analytics of data at rest, but also the analytics of data as it's in flight moving through the cloud service. And having identified key events, key items of data that I might now need to use to generate notifications within my enterprise, the question then becomes of how I integrate that data within the enterprise. And here is where we see that this is where the journey is completed, and very much in terms of how we actually realize, enable you to fully realize the value of that data. And we're doing this either through integration using the APIs, the RESTful APIs that are available within the IoT Cloud Service to enable integration with the business apps, but increasingly to ease to reduce your time to value and make sure you enjoy the fastest time to market possible, providing standardized integrations, whether that be utilization of other parts of the Oracle Cloud Platform, such as integration cloud service, or indeed using standardized integrations that we're providing as a standard component of IoT cloud service to enable integration into other parts of our cloud proposition, such as mobile cloud service or BI cloud service, or indeed into the enterprise applications themselves, such as JD Edwards, the ERP system, or indeed e-business suite and more. So very much with IoT cloud service, the focus here is how do we address some of the issues that we talked about earlier in terms of being able to connect and collect the data, connect to devices, collect the data, conduct the analytics to actually be able to identify the key moments, the key events in that data, and then ensure that the right data gets to the right application within our enterprise at the right time. Now, we're already working with a number of customers in delivery of this capability and in supporting them and advancing them towards the realization of their IoT vision and IoT or digital transformation. One company I'd like to talk about is a company in Germany, Gemu. They're a market leader in developing and manufacturing valves, actuators and control systems, often used in the process control industry. Their equipment at the customer sites regularly sending maintenance data and events, such as whether a valve is open or whether it's closed, including information about timestamps and the ID of that originating device. And what they're looking to be able to do is actually use that information to increase the lifetime and reliability of their products. After all, they're used in some health-critical, chemical processes. The customer doesn't want to find out after the fact that maybe they've spent the last 10 minutes producing some products that are outside of tolerance. So here, the IoT Cloud Service is receiving the events and aggregating by customer and device ID and bringing the data together, and then inspecting that data and using it to generate alerts that can then be issued back into the service portal and generate service tickets. So maybe, we can issue instruction to the customer to make adjustments or indeed identify the need for a service of a particular component, and specifically trying to identify that need in advance of, forcing an out-of-band offline of the entire line. So maybe identifying that a valve is maybe would benefit from maintenance operation in 3 weeks' time, and notifying or understanding that the customer's taking the line down in 2 weeks' time, and sort of ensuring that those events can coincide. But more than that also is gathering the data that Gemu themselves can use within their own R&D processes, and so their own development team can understand how well their products are matching or meeting against their own KPIs. Very interesting use case. I'd like to now move on and talk about another customer that we're working with, this time in a different market segment. This is more focused in the needs of the sort of manufacturing and automotive industry. Working here with a company called Lockbridge. Lockbridge are a service provider, and Lockbridge are utilizing IoT cloud service in their solution that they're providing out to the automotive OEMs. Now, the focus with Lockbridge is how they can actually help their customers to reduce warranty costs and also provide early detection of potential issues, in many ways similar to the previous use case that we just discussed, but also driving to increase customer service. And as indicated in the chart here, looking to help reduce roadside breakdowns, identifying issues earlier, in some cases before they cause a total failure in the product, and also be able to provide some level of proactive service within the maintenance program. The solution here is utilizing IoT cloud service within their broader proposition, and this is something that Lockbridge are now in the process of taking into the market. Now, I've talked about two use cases that talk about the manufacturing industry, the automotive industry. This is something we're doing with Accenture, different use case again. Here it's providing a solution focused at the hospitality industry, the hotel industry, to provide solutions that can help improve customer experience and reduce operational costs. For example, the service team in the hotel, the housekeeping service, often have tasks assigned to them each day to go and clean certain rooms. And all too often, I know it's happened to me, I've been in a room recording an event, recording a webcast, or on a conference call, and suddenly there's a knock at the door, and the housekeeping team then sort of walk in and then hurriedly retreat. So how can that hotel use these capabilities to address those issues? Well, through this service, actually providing notification to the housekeeping team of rooms that are currently not occupied. So they can actually improve their quality of service and improve their operational efficiency of actually focusing on rooms that are known to be empty. However, there may also be issues which require much more immediate response, a water leak or some form of malfunctioning of equipment of which the customer is not aware. And also, therefore, providing notification of those incidents back to the maintenance team so the maintenance team can intercept and provide appropriate responses. This solution is based on a number of the Oracle Cloud Platform services, including IoT Cloud Service, Mobile Cloud Service, and BI Cloud Service, and providing integration with a number of Oracle back-end enterprise applications. So clearly, organizations are already deploying IoT and generating business value from it. And those fall into the areas of operational improvements, optimization of business process, achieving high levels of insight into what's happening with their equipment and how they can increase the availability. Being able to analyze the data to maybe identify new business innovations and new opportunities, and driving towards, as we talked about at the start of this talk, how we can actually increase that differentiation from customer experience. But to achieve this, we anticipate you may well have questions. And those questions might be, where do I start? Or what is the return on investment I can expect? And this is where we sort of shift gears now, and we're moving towards introducing the notion of the Discovery Workshop, or introducing the Discovery Workshop to you. But before we go there, one of the questions that many folks have is, okay, how do I start and then how do I grow? And to support this, we proposed 3 deployment phases. Firstly, focus on connecting the devices and gathering value from those devices, so you can enable remote monitoring and validate the business assumptions that you're making. As you gather the data from the assets, from the devices, feeding it into your downstream, your analytics applications, be able to develop insights and then apply those insights back into the predictive tools, so you can actually enable proactive decisioning and improve the products, improve the services. And then finally, making sure that the IoT data can be blended into the enterprise applications, along with the other forms of enterprise data, so that you're then achieving differentiation through a sort of overall customer experience. Now, an example of how we can use this IoT deployment phase proposition is maybe applying it into an area where we're seeing strong interest right now, is in supporting the deployment for Industry 4.0 in the manufacturing sector. So here we can see the same axes on the graph, time to value and business value. And then looking at saying, okay, we could start with some asset tracking so we can identify the health of an asset, the location of an asset, for which we can deploy against IoT Cloud Service and other PaaS services. And then over time, we can actually enhance that to enable remote monitoring and diagnostics. And then looking further out, we can then start to automate manual workflows. And even further beyond that, starting to uncover capabilities or enable new capabilities in the area of industrial operational intelligence. So we're looking at how we can enable predictive maintenance, or maybe the genealogy or traceability of what went into a certain product and where it's being utilized. So tremendous amount of opportunity here. So how to get started? How can we help you along this journey? How can we help you identify where the value opportunities lie, how you can actually go about realizing it, and then finally how you actually put a plan together to make it a reality. And at this point, I'd like to introduce and hand over to my colleague, Thierry Bouchelet, from the Oracle Insight team. Thierry?
Thank you very much, Simon. Now, the job of my team is to build a bridge between IT and business, or rather the other way around, and this is exactly what this workshop is trying to achieve. And we do that by addressing 3 specific questions on a very high level. The objective of the workshop is to answer why should you do IoT in the first place, and obviously we adjust this to your maturity level. Second question, what exactly should be done? So where to start, but also which use cases to actually touch, and how could a potential solution look like? And the third question, how can this plan really become reality? How should the roadmap look like? How does that fit to my current plans at the organization? And how could we implement this? I'm going to double click on several of those elements in a minute. Also some of the following ones. This is just an overview slide, hence it's a little bit heavy. Now, the approach that we have consists of 4 steps. We haven't mentioned yet that this workshop is actually complementary to you as a client, and hence we need to qualify and set up the workshop to make sure we justify the investment from both sides, but also maximize the output in terms of effectiveness. Once we've done that, we're going to create a business assessment and understand where in your landscape you want to introduce IoT as a new tool with potentially linking to all of those elements that Simon mentioned before. We're then going to do some business modeling that includes typically financial modeling, depending on the data we exchange. So we can give you a clear picture on ROI. We will include outside-in views, other organizations from your industry, our experience as Oracle, et cetera, to make sure you get as much value out of the interaction with us. And then the goal will not be to just run a good workshop, but to actually start pilots together, such that we can demonstrate what we've shown on PowerPoint slides and on the theoretical exercise. Now, in terms of participants, this is the perfect list, and I'm going to double click on it as well in a second. I'm just going to park here that ideally we have a mix of line of business executives, line of business operations people, but also IT representatives from different teams in the same room at the same time together with us. Potentially we can do it together with a partner if you have a favorite implementation partner or consulting partner. And we will run this as a team. Now, the inputs that are required for this exercise are a little bit of preparation. Again, I'm going to detail this on the following slides. We want to make sure you at least had a first initial conversation on IoT, on analytics, on how you want to leverage data going forward, and potentially even define some of the KPIs that you want to achieve for your business. We also would like to understand a little bit where are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to handling data and devices at this point in time. We have clients of very different maturity levels, and we want to make sure we pick up the dialogue at the right place. And also we want to understand such that we can have an educated dialogue with you on current initiatives that you're already running. Because we want to build a roadmap on this process, we want to make sure it fits your current plans, but also, things like resource availability, et cetera, going forward. The most important element, though, even if you don't have a lot of opportunity to prepare the workshop in terms of content, is that we have a set of empowered participants in the room and some clear understanding of the constraints such that first initial discussions and decisions can be made during the workshop. The outcomes, I'm not going to mention here on this page. I'll let you read for the bullets for a second. However, I'm going to show them with some examples from prior workshops that we've been running with clients. Let's double click on the process once more. So the first interaction that we're having after the qualification phase is the discovery workshop, and this is what we're really focusing on during today's presentation in this briefing. We're going to look at your strategy, your objectives. We have a set of prepared discovery questions that will help you have the dialogue internally and together with us. We're going to fit you to a maturity model where that works, but we're also quite flexible to expanding this in case the dialogue benefits you in another way. We're going to define together the metrics and the success criteria based on proposals that we bring. And we're going to make sure that we can identify some top use cases, including the data sources that are relevant to prove some of the ROI claims that will come out of this workshop. And then we're going to begin getting the solution directly in the workshop to make sure everybody has a clear understanding of where the route could be going. Then we're going to, when the workshop is over, lean back for 3 to 4 weeks. Lean back in the sense of not having a direct interaction with you all the time, and build a detailed solution based on the dialogue in the workshop. We're going to build a customized showcase if possible. We're going to define the value proposition and the ROI if possible. And we're going to create a project plan while we continuously interact with you, however, just on a need-to-be basis. At the end of this entire process, we're going to make sure you have a executive level presentation with a lot of backup from the rich dialogue in the background. We're going to present the solution proposal together with you where useful. We're going to help you distribute the message in your organization where useful. We're going to show the showcase to get a more tangible feeling of what the goal will be of this entire Internet of Things exercise. And we're going to present the project roadmap fitting your current plans. If we can go that far, we're going to discuss pricing for some of the solution elements, and then based on that, the potential return on investment. Now, if we look at the goals of the actual workshop once more in a little bit more detail, I want to focus here on the why part. It might just as well be that you are a few steps ahead on the IoT journey and you've climbed the first few S-curves. So we don't want to start on a greenfield in any case. We're going to assess before the actual workshop together with you what you've done before, where you stand in terms of maturity, etc., and pick it up from there. If you're already quite well organized and set up in terms of IoT, we're going to help you climb the next ladder. We're going to help you go down to level 2 and 3 and qualify them, the use cases and the dialogue as much as needed to get all those outputs that I've been talking before and that I'm going to detail on the following slide. Then again, we're going to discuss the what should be done, including some ideas on how to start on Monday morning, and the question, how can this plan become reality? Now, in order to make it a bit less abstract and theoretical, here are some examples of outputs that we've developed with other clients so far in this process. I'm going to double click on 3 of them just to give you an example on some of the details. However, I want to show you 6 exemplified outputs. The first one on the top left is a long list of IoT use cases. We're going to double click on this one. Second one is then a selection of focus use cases for a different client, though, in this example, where we picked the most valuable ones out of the dialogue and further qualified those. Third on the top right is a target architecture. Now, this is not a reference architecture. We will actually map the capabilities that you need for those use cases on your existing architecture, show you where the white spots are and how you can fill them. Then on the bottom line, you have on the left-hand side a set of value drivers and benchmarks. We're going to show you some comparisons with others where they exist and help you show what the maximum, minimum, and realistic target could be out of this dialogue. Then another one I'm going to double click in a minute is a prioritization that we are going to do together in terms of value versus complexity. And this will help us create the roadmap that I've been talking about, which is not shown on this page, but which will prioritize those IoT efforts that you want to do in the future, also versus the current initiatives that you're already running in the organization. Last point, which is very important, in a digital or IoT context, many organizations talk about failing cheap and failing fast. The question is, how do you actually do that? We're going to help you define a set of KPIs that are relevant for what you're doing. Obviously, we try to align them as closely as possible to the KPIs you're already tracking. And then we're going to help you define some boundaries within which you can, try out IoT projects, related data-driven projects, and make sure that if you're running out of this boundary on the upper or lower side, that you can reassess the roadmap and check whether it still makes sense to pursue that route in terms of failing cheap and failing fast. Let me double click on the first deliverable. So this is an example output from a workshop with a global food manufacturing client. Now, the main stakeholder in this dialogue was actually not IT. It was the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. And this person was not interested at all in technology details. So we started the dialogue with this person. We were talking with him about the industry and what's going on. We were talking in a rich dialogue where IoT could play a role and where not, or where it is not yet foreseeable. And then we could still have a meaningful discussion with him without mentioning any technology products at the beginning of this workshop, to make sure we have the right starting point and show the value to the organization that IoT can bring for him. The second example output is from a different client. This is an example for a use case shortlist and 3 enablers that have been identified during the workshop. Now, we further qualified these focus use cases to enable a white spot analysis on the customer architecture. This was very important because we didn't want to keep it on a very high level and talk about all options and possibilities and how technology could help. But we actually wanted to make sure we show on a few examples how this is going to look like for you as an organization. The next slide shows a value complexity analysis that we typically do in the workshop. So we start on a very high level that we can actually already discuss within the workshop. And in order to create a meaningful roadmap, including the pilots that I mentioned earlier to demonstrate the value of the technology investments, this is one of the tools we use to make sure the largest levers and or the lowest hanging fruits are actually touched first in your IoT endeavors. Now, what is it you actually need to prepare? I want to repeat that this is a complementary workshop, and I said, there is some prep work that needs to be done from both sides, so you as a customer, but also us from the Oracle side. As I said, potentially we can include a partner if that is beneficial to you. And also the perfect participant lineup, which is shown on the bottom of the slide. So in terms of prep work, we want to make sure that the success criteria for IoT, but also for the workshop are well defined. And we want to make this as effective as possible and use people's time well. We want to make sure that this is well defined and codified before the actual workshop. Then again, we want you to lean back and think a little bit about what are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to handling IoT data or data in general and acting upon this. That could be technical things, that could be completely non-technical things. We had very different levels of discussion here with other customers. We also want to make sure that you communicate very clearly the hard constraints that you have regarding all your IoT and related endeavors, and that current related initiatives are known, and that the data sources that you have access to today are at least available on a list such that we can see what is feasible and what not when we go into discussions in the workshop. In terms of participant lineup, we can adjust to a certain extent to the stakeholders that are available. However, the list ideally consists of line of business representatives. This includes the executive sponsor or executive sponsors, if there's multiple BUs involved. People like the chief data officer, if he or she is not attached to IT, unit heads concerned with IoT, etc., etc. This list typically looks quite different in different customer contexts, also depending on industry, etc. We want to make sure that some IT representatives are there. At the end of the day, we're talking about technology solutions to support some processes. We also want to make sure we can do some sanity checks, what is actually possible in your company, in your organization. And then we will have our IoT experts, of course, in the room, plus the account specialists who know you very well. And as I mentioned before, potentially some partners, could be consulting partners, could be other partners that enrich the dialogue. With this, I would like to hand back over to you, Simon, so you can discuss next steps, and then we can go further on to the questions Q&A session.
Thank you, Thierry. Very good as well. And hopefully from this, it's clear that the workshop is a great opportunity, really, for customers and for many of us to understand where the value from IoT, where we need to focus. There's a tremendous number of opportunities and some great thinking out there in terms of how we can apply IoT. And I think through tools, through this complementary workshop, we can help you identify and remove some of the complexity of IoT, but actually identify where those low-hanging fruits are and maybe answer some of the questions that I posed earlier. Now, one key question is, how do I register for the workshop and where do I find out more? And so oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop will take you to a page where you can actually register your interest for the workshop. And indeed, if you're looking to sort of recap or learn more about the IoT Cloud Service, or indeed, for that matter, many other aspects of the Oracle Cloud Platform, please, various links here, cloud.oracle.com/IoT and more, will certainly, hopefully answer many, if not all, of your questions. And talking of questions, I think I mentioned at the start of today's event that we'd certainly encourage you to enter your questions into the Q&A chat box, the Q&A tab there in the On24 screen. If you have any questions or wish to contact someone after today's event, we've provided here names of folks in North America, Latin America, in Europe, in Japan, and in APAC that you can reach out to and get in touch with, and they'll certainly be happy to continue the dialogue with you. But at this point, I'd like to, first of all, thank Thierry for joining us today, but really now is the opportunity for us to really look at and address some of the questions that you may have.
So the first question that we've received is one we can immediately address, is can I access a recording of this webcast? Absolutely. We'll have the webcast available within 24 hours of now, and a very simple URL, I think you've seen it before during the course of today's event, oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop, oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop, and that'll take you straight through to a recording of this webcast, and you're free to share with your colleagues and more. Now, another question that I've been asked is whether this workshop's done at a local Oracle office or at my business, and whether or not there are any fees. So really, it's either. It depends on the reachability of the premise. I mean, we can run it at the Oracle office, or we can run it at any of your premises. And as we've discussed, this is complimentary. There are no fees. We've talked about the qualification criteria today. Thierry's outlined that. So, as long as we've got some of that baseline information, and we're happy to help you qualify and make that happen. And really, the start point is go to the registration link at oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop. There's a link there. Please register, and then we can connect with you and help you go through the qualification process and get things set up. I think another question that's been asked, I'm not an Oracle customer, so am I still eligible? Or can I even bring one of my partners into the process? And absolutely, this is open to existing Oracle customers or potentially future Oracle customers. We'd sit down with yourself, and if you wish to bring a partner in, we'll bring that partner together with yourself, and we'll discuss how each party and every party can contribute into the process. I mean, if there's value in having the partner engaged in the process for you, the workshop's designed to accommodate that and ensure that all parties derive the maximum value. Now, I think a question that's come up that really I'd probably want to direct towards you, Thierry, in terms of tailoring, does the workshop, how much tailoring does the workshop need for my particular company or my industry?
Yeah, let me take that one, Simon. So usually we start with a standardized process. So we're using a proven approach that we've used with other customers that we know works well. But what we typically do is we slightly adapt the agenda to your specific needs and the audience. So what we typically assume is a 1-week preparation phase with a roughly 30-minute call attendance from your side, from your project manager or whoever is concerned with IoT, to tailor the discovery workshop. So we use a standard agenda, but we adjust it to make sure it adds value to your organization.
Okay. I've got another question here is, so you talked about having the right mix of folks in the room as you're going through the content. So does the workshop run? Can we run it if there's only folks from the IT organization in the room?
We've seen several models. There's no yes or no here. It really depends. The workshop is built for business value-driven discussion, which then impacts the technology roadmap. We can run it with a pure IT team if the IT representatives in the workshop have a very clear, in the best case, codified view on the business goals that should be achieved with IoT. Because we really want to start with use cases, with business value, to make sure this is not going in any random direction that eventually might not be useful.
Right. So if I just can recap on that. So the focus here is more towards focusing in on the business needs and the use cases rather than sort of doing the deep dive into the technology. That would be something else within the process.
This is true. However, we do touch technology, and we make sure that you get initial view on the architecture out of that workshop. Again, as I mentioned before, it's based on your actual setup, and we're not just coming back with a random reference architecture.
Okay, thank you. Another question here that's coming in, it's around the use cases that we've talked about today. Obviously, I mentioned a couple, and you certainly touched on a couple. They don't necessarily fit the business model of the person asking. So where do we go with that?
Yeah,
Content-wise, we're not tied to any use cases. The examples today that are just selected real-life cases that we've seen at Oracle customers. And the workshop, figures out which ones would actually make sense in an IoT context. It depends on the business model. We'll have that as part of the prep work, but also the discussion within the workshop. And, there's many more dialogues that we had in other customers that have not been shown today. So let's just have a qualification call and see how this can be relevant for your situation and your goals.
Right. Okay. So it's not tied in specifically. And just to recap again, it's not tied in specifically towards the manufacturing use case or the thing you talked about food manufacturing.
Correct. Indeed.
It's a very horizontal approach, I would say.
Several different industries and customer contexts. Also, as I mentioned earlier, several different levels of maturity. So we have from complete greenfield to IoT is a buzzword to companies who are actually quite advanced in the field.
Okay, really good. Thank you. And just to reminder, if you do have any questions, there's still time. I've got a couple of questions left that are queued up, but if you'd like to get a question into the queue, please enter it now using the Q&A facility in the On24 window, and we can try and get to it before we close and finish today's event. Another question here that someone's asking, already got some experience working with the Internet of Things, and they've got a good idea of where they're going and the plan. So where's the value add?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit earlier. So the workshop can help you climb the next ladder step, can help you move to level 2 or 3, either on a use case that you've been thinking about before or something new that comes up. We might also enrich the discussion in terms of broadness, coming in with ideas you might not have had or might not have discussed before. And, independent of whether you already have IoT plans or even live implementation, we can further qualify additional value drivers and propose a solution set based on your current setup. As I said, the dialogue does not require a greenfield situation, and it also does not require advanced maturity from your side. So we can start from your point of view and where you stand today.
Okay, so we'll align. Yeah, right. We align this into the current state. We don't necessarily force people to go backwards and start again. Good stuff. Okay. I think there's one other question which I probably I can address, and that really talks to. I talked about some of the Oracle contacts, folks that you can reach out to follow on. But if you don't, it's regarding, maybe you don't have an Oracle contact, how to start, how to engage. And again, oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop. I'll repeat that, oracle.com/IoT Discovery Workshop, all one word. If you go to that site, which will be live within 24 hours of today, of now, please fill out the registration details and we'll be back to you, we'll reach out to you and start the discussion. So I think that concludes today's event. We've answered most of the questions we got, in fact all of them. I'd like to thank you Thierry, I'd like to thank you for your participation today, but I'd also like to thank you, the audience, for joining us today as we've talked about the IoT Discovery Workshop. And I look forward to talking with you again in the very near future. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.